Today, we are diving deep into a story that is just staggering. It's built on a lie that lasted for 20 years, and it forces you to ask some really fundamental questions about what family and trust even mean.
So let me ask you this. What do you think is a man's greatest pride? For a lot of guys, it's not the job, it's not the money, it's being a dad. It's raising your kids, seeing their first steps, hearing them call you dad for the first time. It's about your legacy. Well, for the man in our story, this idea, it was everything. It was the absolute foundation of his world.
Our story begins with a man from England named Richard, who, from the outside looking in, had built what you could only describe as the perfect life.
Now, Richard was a successful businessman, sure, but his real pride and joy, that was his family. He was married to his wife, Kate, for over 2 decades, and they had 3 sons that he absolutely adored, an eldest and then a set of twins. He was that kind of dad, the one who never missed a football game, the one who worked his tail off to make sure his boys had every possible opportunity, including sending them to university. His entire life was built around those boys.
So you have this 20-year marriage, all these milestones, a family that looks picture perfect. Every memory, every holiday, every celebration was built on this solid foundation. That was his reality, his whole world. But at 55 years old, a single, totally routine doctor's visit was about to bring that entire world crashing down.
Yeah, everything was about to change. A health issue that seemed pretty minor at first was about to lead to a revelation that would completely unravel the last 2 decades of Richard's life.
It all started with something simple, a nagging cough, a little shortness of breath. So Richard does the sensible thing, he goes to see his doctor. They run a bunch of tests, and a little while later, the doctor walks back into the room holding a file, with this incredibly grim look on his face.
The diagnosis was cystic fibrosis. It's a rare inherited genetic disease. Now, when Richard heard those words, his first thought wasn't about himself, it wasn't about his own health, his mind went straight to his kids. With his voice probably shaking, that immediate fatherly instinct just took over. He looks at the doctor and asks, "Could my sons have inherited this? Do they need to get tested?" And it was that question, a question that came from a place of pure love and concern, that led to the doctor's absolutely shocking response.
The floor was literally about to fall out from under Richard's world. A single sentence from this doctor was about to completely erase everything he thought he knew about his own life.
You can just picture it, can't you? The doctor slowly puts the file down. He takes off his glasses. He just looks at Richard for a long moment, and his expression is this mix of total astonishment and just deep, deep pity. And then he finally broke the silence. The doctor explained that men with cystic fibrosis are born without the vas deferens, which is the tube that carries sperm. And then he said the words, "Richard, you have been, since the day you were born, 100% infertile. It is medically impossible for you to have ever fathered a child." In that one instant, the whole world just caved in. Richard said he just couldn't breathe. If it was medically impossible for him to be their father, then who was? Whose kids had he been staying up with when they were sick? Who did he teach to ride a bike? Whose children had he been raising, loving, and providing for 20 years?
That drive home must have been a complete blur. He was in a state of shock, but he knew one thing for sure. He had to go home and confront his wife, Kate.
He walked in the door holding that doctor's report. With tears just streaming down his face, he put the report down on the table and managed to say just 4 words. "Tell me the truth."
At first, Kate denied everything. Of course she did. There were tears, she insisted the tests had to be wrong, she even tried to claim it must be some kind of miracle. But here's the thing, you can't argue with science. A court-ordered DNA test was done, and the results came back with the final brutal confirmation. Richard was not the biological father of any of the 3 boys.
And with that proof on the table, with the truth now completely undeniable, the full horrifying story of the deception finally started to come out. Kate confessed back in the first few years of their marriage, right around the time all the kids were conceived, she'd been having a long-term affair with one of Richard's own close business associates. But here's the most devastating part, the real gut punch. She knew. She had known from the very beginning that those children were not his. Let that number sink in for a second. 20. For 20 years, she watched him love and provide for another man's children, all while she was carrying this monumental, life-destroying secret. Suddenly, every single one of his most cherished memories was poisoned by this lie. The moment she placed his newborn son in his arms in the delivery room, every tuition payment he proudly made for their education,
Every night he stayed up with this sick child. Every single birthday, every school event, she watched him build his entire life around her lover's children, and she knew the truth the entire time.
So what happens after a truth like this just shatters a life into a million pieces? Well, the aftermath reveals a kind of pain that doesn't just go away. And this is where a deeply personal story intersects with a really complex legal and psychological issue known as paternity fraud.
A court did order Kate to pay a massive financial settlement for the deception. But really, money can't fix this, can it? It can't buy back 20 years of your life or solve this kind of identity crisis. For Richard, the emotional reality is just so much more complicated. Legally, yeah, he was a victim of fraud. But in his heart, he's a father. This whole case brings up a profound question. What truly defines being a parent? Is it just biology, or is it 2 decades of unconditional love and sacrifice?
Richard is still living with this reality today. And he says that every single time he looks at an old family photo, there is one single, soul-crushing question that comes back to haunt him. He wonders, the woman I shared my pillow with for 20 years, did she ever feel a single moment of guilt? And that is a question that he will probably never, ever have an answer to.